This is Part 2, Episode 52. The Sun Moon Empire's capital was called Sun Moon City or the Radiant City. It was the hub of the Sun Moon Empire's administration and economy. The city was very large, completely beyond what the Shrek Academy students had imagined. Jing Hongchen only slowed down once they entered the Radiant City. When he did so, everyone could clearly see what was beneath them. We've already arrived in the Radiant City. All of you will live in this place for the next 2.5 years. I hope that you all find it to your liking. The Radiant City is the pride of the Sun Moon Empire. I'm certain that even if one were to place Star Luo City, Heaven Do City, and Do Ling City together, they'd still be outclassed in size by the Radiant City. It was already nightfall when they arrived, but the time only served to make the city appear more shocking. As Hui Yuhao looked down on the city, he could only see buildings in every direction. There didn't seem to be end to the city. The majority of the buildings were 5 stories tall, but some were more than 10. This was extremely rare in Shrek City and Star Luo City. However, this wasn't what caused the city to look shocking. Many buildings were lit up and shone brightly, like the stars in the sky. Many large streets and avenues snaked between the buildings, some of which were as large as 30 meters in width. Hui Yuhao seemed to sense a soul power fluctuation amidst the bright lights. Fan Yu couldn't help but ask, Hallmaster Hongchen, why are there no city walls? Jing Hongchen replied, the Radiant City doesn't need walls. His voice sounded very calm, yet was also full of assurance. His words were thought-provoking, but they didn't divulge any of the Sun Moon Empire's secrets. Jing Hongchen led everyone as they flew towards the south. As they flew, Hui Yuhao noticed some star-shaped golden lights emerging from Jing Hongchen's flying-type soul tool and spreading outwards that seemed to maintain a special frequency. Even though Hui Yuhao didn't know what the point of it was, but he knew it had to have a point. He quickly found the rhythm with his spiritual power, then recorded it. Jing Hongchen's words weren't an exaggeration. While they weren't flying very fast, it still took them 15 minutes to reach the Radiant City's southern edge. Hui Yuhao could tell that even if they really did combine all of the capitals, it would still be less than half the size of the city beneath them. While he might not have seen the Heavenly Do Empire and Do Ling Empire's capitals in person, he still knew that this was the case. This city's sheer scale left them in shock. Not too far in front of them, a hexagonal region outlined by lights appeared. This region alone was comparable to a medium-sized city. There were several buildings inside of it, but the region mostly contained empty plots of land. Jing Hongchen informed everyone that this region was property of the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. The golden light scattered, and Jing Hongchen landed with everyone in an enormous plaza. The light film dispersed, and the magical flying-type soul tool disappeared before any of them realized. Some people were awaiting their arrival in the plaza and had come to welcome them. Among them, a short and plump middle-aged man walked towards Jing Hongchen and said respectfully, Hallmaster, everything's been arranged. Welcome everyone to the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. For the next 2.5 years, each and every one of you will be considered students of our Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. To ensure the success of this exchange, we'll be providing you all with the best learning environments. As such, the illustrious Virtue Hall will be open to you 2 days a week. Additionally, you'll have the opportunity to take part in the illustrious Virtue Hall's tests. If you manage to pass, you'll become members of the illustrious Virtue Hall until the exchange is over. Within these trays you'll find a map of the Academy and the Academy's handbook, as well as the keys to your room. As it's a bit late right now, the Academy's teachers will conduct a few simple tests so that you can receive your proper uniforms tomorrow. Once your physical conditions have been recorded, you can find me if you need help with anything. Everyone received their things, while Yi Xiaoshen cemented his role as their leader by stepping forward first. Hikaitu and Hui Yuhao, along with the rest of the students, followed him. Hikaitu and Hui Yuhao stayed near the back of the pack as they were led by the teachers to a nearby area. As they walked, Hui Yuhao took out the map that he'd just received. The darkness didn't affect his vision much. The Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy was much larger than Shrek Academy, even if one included Sea God's Island. The map simply showed that the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy was divided into 3 regions, the teaching area, dormitories, and the testing area. The testing area covered 2/3 of the academy, and many regions within the testing area were circled. Hui Yuhao could vaguely recall that there were many buildings within these regions, but their purposes weren't written on the map. There was a particular region in the center of the testing area that was circled in red called the illustrious Virtue Hall. While the illustrious Virtue Hall was a part of the testing area, everyone present knew just what it meant to the Sun Moon Empire and their academy. The teaching area and dormitory area had more details on the map. There were a total of 12 teaching blocks divided into 6 grades of students, 2 blocks for each grade. It was clear that the Sun Moon Imperial Seoul Engineering Academy accepted far more students than Shrek Academy. Elder Xian had given them a brief overview of the Sun Moon Imperial Seoul Engineering Academy before they'd come, which included its students. At this point, the teachers brought Hui Yuhao and the others to a school building for first-grade students. The building was massive, and the vast corridors extended far into the distance. Lin Jiayi informed everyone that the quantity of students in each grade varied a lot because of the promotional criteria in the Sun Moon Imperial Seoul Engineering Academy. There were 32 classes of 40 students each in the first grade, which fell by a third once one entered the second grade. The 6th grade students, on the other hand, all of whom Class 5 Seoul engineers, were no longer separated into classes, and all cultivated together in order to prepare for the illustrious Virtue Hall's tests. Hui Yuhao noticed that there were many Seoul tools all throughout the school building, all of which looked exquisite. While he could tell what some of them were used for, most of them he couldn't. Lin Jiayi brought them all the way to the end of the first level and stopped in front of a room. There was a sign on the door that read Measurement Room. Lin Jiayi retrieved a bat from his neck and placed it in front of a circular, disc-like object embedded in the door. A beep sounded, and the metal door silently opened to both sides. Lin Jiayi then led everyone inside. The room wasn't very big, only around 100 square meters in size. Inside, there were several large-scale Seoul tools. There were some large-scale Seoul tools inside Shrek Academy's Seoul Tool Department's testing area, but they were mainly used for handling metal, sculpting, and punching holes during the process of creating other Seoul tools. However, the large-scale Seoul tools here were much more compact, and Seoul power undulations they emitted were much stronger. Lin Jiayi clapped his hands, attracting everyone's attention to him. This is the Academy's measurement room. All students must complete their physical measurements here. Don't worry, the Seoul Physique measuring scale won't do any harm to your body. Now then, I'll need all of you to temporarily put your Seoul tools away to prevent any interference. Pass your storage-type Seoul tools to your friends first, then ensure that there's no other metals on your bodies. Hui Yuhao was certain that the Seoul Physique measuring scale was a Class 6 Seoul tool through his detection and observation of its formation arrays. He didn't find any problems, and he had completely recorded the information on this Seoul Physique measuring scale. As he stepped up to the Seoul Physique measuring scale, he completed his record of its formation arrays. However, the amount of complicated information was too great to be memorized in the long term. Hui Yuhao could at best commit it to memory for 2 hours before he'd forget it. So he had to draw what he could recall as soon as possible, or cement his memory even further. Hui Yuhao's spiritual power was depleted by almost 10% just like that. The white light from the Seoul Physique measuring scale lit up and scanned him from the top down. Hui Yuhao squinted as he retracted his spiritual power. Physical strength, rank 62. Physical tenacity, rank 68. Soul power undulation, rank 40. Height, 1.80 meters. Weight, 74 kilograms. Left arm length. Age, 14. Added left and right arm bones. Final evaluation, the series of numbers in front of them left everyone around shocked. The entire measurement room was in pin-drop silence. Even though Hikaitu was evaluated to be a Soul King based on the statistics that popped out, everyone was stunned to see Hui Yuhao's age and rank 40 soul power. What did his rank 40 soul power signify? It meant that he had yet to become a full-ring soul ancestor. That being the case, then Hui Yuhao must be a soul elder, but he was a soul elder that had obtained over rank 60 in more than one measurement. Besides lagging behind Hikaitu in physical strength, he matched him in others. Most importantly, he had 3 soul bones, which was more than Hikaitu. Beep, 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 beep. Weird sounds came from the Seoul Physique measuring scale. The teacher in charge of recording results was stunned. He said, "The numbers are a mess, the Seoul Physique measuring scale has malfunctioned. Monster, this guy's a monster." When he looked at Hui Yuhao again, his eyes even showed traces of shock and fear. Hui Yuhao scanned him calmly. He stepped off the Seoul Physique measuring scale and said gently, "I'm from Shrek Academy. The academy has another name, Monster Academy. Our school motto is, we only nurture monsters, not ordinary people. Thanks for your compliment." Yi Xiaosheng was shocked as he looked at Hui Yuhao returning to Hikaitu's side. He couldn't help but mutter to himself, there should be another measurement. For arrogance, Lin Jiayi swallowed and looked at Hui Yuhao, astonished. He didn't know what to say. He'd seen many talented students in his role as the continent's top Seoul Engineering Academy's teaching director. But he had to admit that Hui Yuhao had one of the most abnormal body conditions he'd ever seen. Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen couldn't even compare to him. Lin Jiai said, "All right, we still have 2 more tests to do. We don't have much time left, so let's move it along. Allow me to introduce the subject of the second test. This test will measure your strength. You can't use soul tools for the test, but you can use soul power to boost your strength. Strength is vital to a soul engineer, necessary to control large-sized soul tools." The soul strength measuring scale. It was larger than the soul physique measuring scale, taking up around 10% of the room. There was a striking point covered in leather within the soul strength measuring scale. This striking point was a square meter in size. No one from Shrek Academy knew what this soul tool was made of. The strength test was very simple, one just needed to hit the striking point with all their might. Evaluations were determined in terms of soul power rank, in line with the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy's evaluating standards. Boom, boom. Dull booms sounded repeatedly. These Shrek Academy students didn't excel in this test. After all, they were from the Soul Tool department and were more focused on increasing their soul powers. Even their soul rings were focused on increasing their soul powers. None of them were evaluated above rank 60 in this test, including Yi Xiaoshen. It was He Kaitu's turn again. He Kaitu and Hui Yuhao looked at each other. They didn't need to use words to understand what the other was thinking. He Kaitu walked up to the soul strength measuring scale and took in a deep breath. He compared the size of his fist to the striking point. Just as everyone thought he would punch the striking point, he suddenly shouted, "I have a large cigar." Bam! Yi Xiaoxing slipped and fell to the floor. His head even hit the side of the soul strength measuring scale. Everyone stiffened up suddenly as they saw He Kaitu holding his large cigar. He stuffed the cigar in his mouth and lit it with a speck of flame before taking in a deep breath. Strength amplifying large cigar. This was He Kaitu's second soul-skilled student. "You can't smoke in the academy." As a teacher tried to warn him, He Kaitu's eyes shot open. He brought his left foot forward and punched out with his right fist, striking the soul strength measuring scale before him. Bang! A huge tremor spread. The entire room seemed to shake because of this fist. The numbers on the soul strength measuring scale quickly changed, and the scale even shifted more than 3 inches from its original position. Strength, rank 70. The teacher that was in charge of recording muttered the staggering number out. It was pertinent to note that this soul strength measuring scale could only record soul power up to rank 70. This rank 70 limit was set using a strength-type soul master as a benchmark. He Kaitu shook his fist and jumped off of the soul strength measuring scale leisurely. He took out the cigar from his mouth and breathed out a swirl of smoke. He spoke to the teacher that warned him, "Sorry. Didn't mean to violate academy regulations on purpose. I'm a food-type soul master, the cigar is my martial soul. Teacher, do you want to try my large cigar? How about my thick cigar?" He stretched his waist as he spoke. The teacher quickly rejected him. He was still completely stunned by He Kaitu's strength. To teaching director Lin Jiai's knowledge, no one else in the room but him could reach the limit on the soul measuring scale. He Kaitu's strength was comparable to a soul beast's. At rank 50 soul power he could actually unleash such a powerful force, whereas even an assault-type soul king with many enhancements from soul skills might not be able to reach such force. Hui Yuhao was only average amongst the 10 students despite his rank of 55. However, as he was only 14 years old, this was actually an extraordinary result. Furthermore, he'd released his strength using a different method than the others. He'd managed to unleash such a powerful force even though he was only a foot away. His strike hadn't made much sound, which further demonstrated his technique. He hadn't wasted any strength at all. Hui Yuhao hadn't used any soul skills to enhance his body either. The only thing he'd relied on was his own personal strength and a little of the Tang sex controlling crane capturing dragon. He was quite satisfied with his strength evaluation. It was neither too high nor too low. With this, he'd passed the test without drawing too much attention to himself. If he'd used the Ice Empress pincer and mysterious jade hands, the result would have been completely different. After the strength test ended, everyone proceeded to the last segment. This time, it was a reaction speed test. The measuring scale was much smaller this time. It was a squarish platform that held 16 boxes, each of which were the size of a fist. These boxes would light up at random, after which one was supposed to slap the lit boxes in order to deactivate them. The test would end when one box was missed. This test had nothing to do with one's abilities, it was a simple test of one's reaction speed and the coordination between one's mind and body. Yi Xiaosheng didn't act as arrogant as he had before when they arrived. The two tests that they'd just taken had revealed how inferior he was to He Kai-tu. The only lead he had was his soul rank. Although he didn't think that he'd lost face, he still felt a bit awkward. The last test was like a game. In the beginning, Yi Xiaosheng wasn't very bothered by the test, and even became slightly complacent. However, he paid the price for his complacency very quickly. When the test started, the boxes only lit up one by one and remained lit for around a third of a second. If one hit the boxes before the time was up, they'd pass and the test would continue. Yi Xiaosheng managed to breeze through the test while the boxes lit up one by one. However, a pair of boxes lit up after a while, which temporarily stunned Yi Xiaosheng. He managed to hit one of them, but he was slightly too slow to reach the other. With this, his test was over. Reaction, slow. When the teacher in charge of recording the results gave him this evaluation, Yi Xiaosheng felt like hiding himself in a hole. The rest of the students learned from Yi Xiaosheng's mistake and were much more cautious. Even though they were all inner courtyard disciples from the Soul Tool department, they had still once been part of the martial soul department. Shrek Academy often trained the reactive abilities of their students, thus they weren't too bad at it. When He Kai-tu's turn came, he fully demonstrated his great reaction speed and managed to survive for 5 full minutes. It was only when 8 boxes lit up at the same time that he couldn't react in time. Hui Yuhao was the last to take the test. He was rather curious about how the test functioned. However, he found it difficult to focus. While the others had been taking the test, he'd attempted to memorize the structure and formation arrays of the 3 measuring scales using his spiritual power, which had depleted him greatly. This caused him to be eliminated rather quickly. He only managed to reach 6 boxes, thus his reaction speed was evaluated as average. Alright, the tests will end here. The teachers will bring you all to your dormitory in a little while. The academy has arranged a single room along with a washroom for each of you. I hope that all of you like this place for the next 2.5 years. Your uniforms will also be delivered tomorrow. The structure of a soul tool was rather complex, hence he couldn't make any mistakes in his recording. The soul physique measuring had been the most advanced of the 3 soul tools that he'd seen today, followed by the soul strength measuring scale. They were Class 6 and Class 5 soul tools respectively. The last soul tool had only been Class 4, and was much simpler than the other 2. Their complex structures and formation arrays were slowly recorded by Hui Yuhao. He took 2 hours to record everything, and even included his own evaluation of the 3 soul tools. Hui Yuhao also managed to develop a deeper understanding of them as he recorded their structures and formation arrays. He sighed when he realized that they weren't even the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy's greatest works. However, he could already sense the enormous gap between Shrek Academy and the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. Despite the deeper understanding he'd gleaned from them, Hui Yuhao could barely understand a third of the 3 soul tools he'd just recorded. Yet, according to Shrek's standard, he was already at the level of a Class 6 soul engineer. Despite his large quantity of spiritual power, he was still fatigued once he'd finished writing, thus he went to his bed to meditate. What's the situation like? Jing Hongchen asked Lin Jiayi. Lin Jiayi said, the most outstanding of them is He Kai-tu. His strength has reached rank 70. Furthermore, he stated that he was a food-type soul master, and his martial soul should be a cigar. His body has reached the level of a soul emperor despite him only being a soul king. He ranked first in all 3 tests. What about Hui Yuhao? Jing Hongchen asked. Lin Jiayi answered, is quite extraordinary. During the physique test, his strength and tenacity were rather outstanding. His reaction speed was normal, however. I observed him carefully, and I don't believe that it was intentional. Furthermore, he actually has 3 soul bones. When our soul physique measuring scale tried to analyze them, the numbers got messed up. I thus suspect that he has an external soul bone. He's not like a soul engineer, but more like a talented soul master. His soul power has reached rank 40, yet he hasn't obtained his 4th soul ring to attain a breakthrough yet. This is also quite suspicious. Jing Hongchen smiled and said, that's normal. Hui Yuhao is from Shrek's martial soul department. He's mainly here as collateral. However, we can't underestimate him. After all, he's still Elder Mu's personal disciple. My sources claim that he's an orphan and that his background is unclear. Continue to observe their movements. During class, try to pay attention to He Kai-tu. I'll send someone else to watch Hui Yuhao. Lin Jiayi asked, "Hall Master, do we?" Jing Hongchen shook his head and said, "There's no need to. Just follow the normal procedures. The Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy can't go back on its word. So what if they manage to learn? The gap between our academies in terms of soul tools is simply too great. It can't be closed with just a few exchange students. They won't possibly be able to figure out our core secrets either. More importantly, Shrek is only an academy. However, we're the research facility of the Sun Moon Empire. With the dragon god Doluo Mu En dead, the continent will belong to the Sun Moon Empire within 20 years. The Doluo continent will be renamed to the Moon Continent when that happens." When he reached this point, an excited look flashed through his eyes. Lin Jiayi acknowledged his words respectfully and then retreated. "Jiayi, wait a minute, yes, do you have any other instructions?" Lin Jiayi asked. Jing Hongchen asked, "How's the progress on Plan 1? Hui Yuhao's 3 eyes opened together, and he watched as the sun rose. He let out a refreshed breath, and a gust of white fog came out from his mouth. It slowly took shape and surrounded his body. As he breathed in again, the fog turned into 2 streaks of white gases that entered into his body through both of his nostrils. The entire room was filled with a clear aura. Although there weren't any plants, there was a strong sense of life. His fatigue ceased to exist after a few hours of meditation. Hui Yuhao's improvements in the mysterious heaven technique were slow but steady. He wasn't in a rush to obtain his 4th soul ring. He had enough soul skills, unlike other lower-level soul masters who possessed limited soul skills. His first soul ring had given him 4 useful spiritual-type soul skills. He also had 2 other soul skills from the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion, as well as 5 soul skills from his 4 soul bones. Even a soul sage might not have as many soul skills as he did. If he absorbed another soul ring, he could increase his own power and add another soul skill. Furthermore, he had also realized after he added his 3rd soul ring that his spiritual-type martial soul needed some luck in finding a suitable soul ring. That was why he wasn't rushed at all, and instead calmly focused on increasing his own cultivation. He also aimed to improve his knowledge on soul tools over the next 2.5 years, and enhance his own abilities. In addition, he also aimed to steal the research results of the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. He took in 3 more deep breaths and adjusted his soul power. Hui Yuhao felt a warmth coming from his body. He shut his eye of destiny and it disappeared. The light within his spirit eyes also slowly faded away. While he was only 14 years old, when he placed his hands behind his back he already looked very mature. Every dormitory block in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy had its own canteen. The higher the grade, the nicer the food in the canteen of the dormitory block. Hui Yuhao and the others stayed in the 6th grade dormitory block, which meant that the food in the canteen there was the best. However, the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy couldn't compare to Shrek Academy in terms of its food. Hui Yuhao and He Kai-tu had been enjoying delicacies in Shrek Academy over the past 2 years. The food here in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy was too plain for their liking. Hui Yuhao and He Kai-tu met Fan Yu in the canteen. "How are the 2 of you feeling?" Fan Yu wore a slight smile as he looked at the both of them. He Kai-tu laughed bitterly. "The gap is really huge." Hui Yuhao nodded. "In the first month, you'll all be learning here. Once you possess a certain foundation, you'll take a test administered by a teacher from the illustrious Virtue Hall. The results of that test will determine your frequency of participation in the illustrious Virtue Hall's lectures and practicals. The best you can achieve is to enter the illustrious Virtue Hall directly to learn. The worst is that you'll only be able to enter once every 10 days. You'll also be offered the opportunity to take the test again as you learn. As long as the results of your test are satisfactory, your time in the illustrious Virtue Hall will be increased. Principally, the Academy doesn't wish for any of you to leave unnecessarily. That's because we can't guarantee your personal safety outside of the Academy. As exchange students, we'll be heavily accountable if anything happens to any of you. That's why it's important for you to apply for leave and report to me if you want to leave the Academy for leisure purposes. You'll need to sign an indemnity form, too. Basically, that is all. If there are any questions, you can ask your assigned teacher directly, or you can find me." Lin Jiayi explained the future learning process to Shrek's students. Besides the illustrious Virtue Hall's test that caught Hui Yuhao's attention, he was also piqued that they were all going to be separated. There were 10 teachers standing behind Lin Jiayi, meaning that each one of them would take 1 student. To ensure fairness, the teachers will use a lot drawing method to choose which student they'll be guiding. The lot drawing will start now. As he spoke, Lin Jioi received a tray from one of the working crew. There were folded pieces of paper on the tray. The 10 teachers streamed towards the tray and each took a piece of paper. The first teacher to draw his lot was the youngest among the 10 teachers. He appeared to be around 30 or so, and was even younger than Fan Yu or Yu Hao. He read out the name on his piece of paper. Hui Yu Hao's brow furrowed a little, but he still walked out quickly. He replied, "Present." This young teacher looked very cold. After seeing Hui Yu Hao's Class 3 Soul Engineer badge, he said coldly, "Follow me." After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked away. He didn't wait for the other teachers. Hui Yu Hao didn't say anything else and followed him out. He proceeded to the second teaching block of the 6th grade as he followed this young teacher. He had furrowed his brow earlier because this teacher was too young. He was capable of becoming a Class 7 Soul Engineer even though he was only 30 or so years old. However, he should be placing all his focus and energy on his cultivation and research on soul tools at such an age. Could he teach well? Furthermore, he could sense that this teacher didn't like him. That's because the teacher also furrowed his brow when he saw Hui Yu Hao. "I hope that I can learn something from him," Hui Yu Hao sighed. He had hoped for an older teacher. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.